Hello, and welcome back to Lyre. We're in we're still I think we're still in third person? We're third person, still with Lyal. With Lyal. This doesn't worry him too much though, and knowing that the air will eventually warm up as the day marches on. Carefully, Lyle stands up and stretches his legs by walking around, giving his body a chance to fully wake up. He only slept for about 3 hours, instead of the usual 4 or 5. He feels refreshed, though, and that's all that matters. It's always the short rests that feel the longest. He takes a few steps around his bed and looks out the window. Crisp snow has piled up on the sill, and the morning sun shimmers through the top of it like crystals. Okay, it's gonna be one of those recording sessions. I already can tell. The room has a dull and cozy glow to it, which contrasts a colorful morning sky outside. Lyle swiftly walks to the other side of his room near the door and puts on a long cotton coat. Lifting the coat up and sliding his arms into the sleeves along with it allows him to get a good whiff of his own body. It's not a terrible smell, but he could definitely use a bath. The last one that he took was the quick one he had right before everything fell apart. He'd like to visit Richter later and wouldn't want to smell unclean. He'll also have to attend Prince Adrius's coronation. That's supposed to happen sometime this morning, so he should have time afterwards. Lyle then takes a pair of underwear and slides them on, along with a pair of thick trousers. Taking another look around his room, he notices that everything is still the way it was that night. The fire is out and the bed sheets are disheveled, but everything is still in place. Even the ballroom clothes that were thrown on the ground in a pile are still bundled up on the floor against his bed. It's like a frozen memory, or a memory frozen in time. Gathering up a few things, he made a motion for the bed before noticing something. There's a piece of parchment face down on the ground that's been slid under the door. He bends over it and picks it up, flipping it over to read it. Oh, Lyall, meet me in my study after the coronation. I need to talk to you about something in private, please. Leaf. Oh. Leaf wants to meet me after the coronation? Why? Whatever it is, he hopes it isn't more bad news. He walks over to the dresser and unlocks the top drawer, throwing the letter inside. Whatever he wants to talk about most likely has nothing to do with what's going on, but the letter gives off a feeling of urgency. He'll most likely have to visit him before seeing Richter. Not only that, but he still has work to do everywhere else, along with figuring out how to save Richter from being strung up by his neck. He shakes this terrible thought out of his mind, as he goes for the door. He takes a few steps out into the hall and looks left and right, hoping that nobody is coming. The entire corridor is empty as he strides in the direction of the stairs leading to the bathroom. He's clothed, of course, but he would rather be alone with his thoughts right now. The private bath next to his room is ideal, but right now he'd rather use the one near Richter's room. It's comfortable and people rarely use it. Most things in the guest wing are usually better quality. It's honestly a good thing that the coronation is today. Everyone in the castle is probably getting ready or already outside of the throne room. Even the staff is most likely prepping for some posh thing afterwards. Lyle wouldn't really know. He's never been to a coronation. The cold yet fresh air wafts up upon his face as he emerges from the inner hall. Weather around this time of year is cold enough to chap his nose badly. He brings his paws up to his snout and breathes into them as he walks down each twist and turn of the hall. Richter, as he's right as he's coming up to the bathroom door, he spots Richter's room down the hall. The door is still propped open. They're probably still conducting a search of the place. He would have been a part of it, but they asked him not to intervene since he was so close to Richter. He was a bit offended by it, but tried not to let it bother him. Swiftly, he slid into the bathroom, escaping the cold. He patted his feet and immediately his padded feet immediately touched the damp floor, and he has to stop himself from slipping as he steps through the doorway. The room echoes as the door shuts behind him with a soft thud. Everything smells the way it usually does, and the room is cast in a glow of colorful light from the windows above. The white marble shines and even brighter because of it. Walking over to the levers, he pulls out the ones he usually uses. He pulls the water one all the way down, and then takes the one that says oils and pulls it down just a little bit. Along with pulling the soap lever down, of course. He watches as water begins to funnel out of the faucets at the top. The scent of coconuts and natural plant aromas invade his senses as the water splashes to the bottom of the already damp pool. He begins to take off his clothes and set them on the bench nearby to the door. Nobody is here right now, so there's no need to go to the changing room. Gently, he steps into the tub and lowers himself into the hot bath. It's a relaxing feeling that envelops his whole body. He dunks his head under the water and scrubs with his paws all around his floof. He brings his head up from underneath the water and imagines that he now looks like a wet mop. He shakes his head a bit, splattering water everywhere and slightly drying his head fur. After that, he lays back against the wall of the pool and lets the water rush around him. His environment allows him to think clearly. At least, as long as nobody's bothering him. After a few moments of sitting there in the pool of warm water, he realizes something. Even though he has the determination to do it, how is he going to help Richter? He's no detective. Damn it! He begins to slowly scrub himself down, cleaning himself thoroughly. Going around and asking questions would certainly help, but whom would he start with? He contemplates for a moment before remembering something. The dagger that was found at the scene of the crime has intrigued him since he first laid eyes on it. It looked like an ordinary dagger at first glance, but something seemed off about it. Unique in a way. He has to figure that out sooner or later. Where did that dagger come from? Maybe he would figure out who was the owner. Eden would be the best person to ask. He supplies the best weapons in the village and is a master of his craft. He's made weapons for the highest nobles around, including being the one who crafted Rainer's sword. Yeah, Rainer's sword. He should know at least something. Lyre raises a bit from the water with a feeling of triumph now that he has a clear goal in mind. He'll clear Richter's name. He has to. He finishes cleaning himself and gets out of the bath. His fur is now sleek and shines a rich color brown in the morning light. Water drips off the side and onto the slippery floor, creating small puddles around him. He walks over to the lever and resets them. Allowing the water to stop in the pool to drain. Walking over to the bench, he takes a dry towel off of the clean pile and begins to lightly dry his fur, but not too much. He doesn't want to get rid of the oils in his fur that help keep it shiny and smooth. Once he's done patting himself down with the towel, he places it into the basket and broadens his stance. Then he proceeds to shake his body, mostly his head, almost like how a dog would when they were wet. Water flings off of him, creating a thick mist cloud of his fur floofs, and his fur floofs up for a moment, before laying back down on his body. He wouldn't dream of doing something like that in front of someone. He usually tends to keep his canine tendencies to himself and refrains from acting in such a way in front of people. After a bit of theatrics, he dresses himself, the dry clothes sticking into his damp body, and then leaving through the door. After laying down and allowing himself to fully dry off, Lyre raises from his bed and begins to get ready for the ceremony. It's best he arrive a little bit early. Looking in from one of the looking in one of the mirrors on the wall, he runs his paws through his fur. As untamed as it is, he'd like for his fur to look as decent as possible. After tidying up his fur, he walks over to his armor, the armor stand. His ceremonial armor is loosely thrown onto it for the night before. He takes the full body suit and slides it under his legs around his torso, sliding the arms into its sleeves. It's warm and lined with leather on the inside. He then takes the breastplate, gorget, and connected pauldrons, and puts them on. He's gotten a lot better at putting his armor on by himself over the years. It's a relatively easy set of armor to put on, considering it's mostly meant to be ornamental. The armor that he was wearing, he would wear, is actually combat. In actual combat is somewhere in the trunk. That's very hard to put on. It would be easier with 2 people, maybe a squire, but Lyre refused having a squire when the opportunity was given to him. He doesn't entirely need the help, and he has no wisdom to offer yet. He just had to accept that he would be wasting their time. Raynar wasn't upset by it, though. He rarely ever got upset at things. Locking the last brace onto his wrist, he stands in the mirror and looks himself over. The armor may look a bit ridiculous at times, but is very comfortable and protects from the cold perfectly. He latches the cape onto his pauldrons, equipping the sheath from the sword, and goes to leave for the door. But just as he's about to leave, he looks at the helmet still sitting on the armor's rack. It's a typical knight's helmet, fitting to a wolf's head, and even styled to look like a wolf. Every knight in the royal guard has one styled after their species, and nobody ever wears them. But no one ever wears them. They're extremely uncomfortable and not really needed for day-to-day duties. Most knights either carry them around under their arms, or just don't even bother to bring them. For a moment, Lyre considers bringing it to the ceremony, but then reconsiders, knowing that he won't ever be on duty. Even as captain, he'll most likely just get to hang back in the crowd and watch from the center of the room. He couldn't help but wonder if they planned it that way. No, excuse me. Maybe they didn't want the person who was closest to Richter planted right alongside the throne. Then again, nobody had really accused Lyre of anything yet. He steps through the door and out into the dim corridor. Thankfully, the throne room isn't too far from his bedchambers. He can even hear some distant chatter coming from the throne room. It's pretty far away, but his hearing is better than most. He starts walking down the hall, and his paw relaxingly, placed on the handle of the dagger. On his way, he passes a few people who are clearly making an effort to pay him no mind. Being one of the tallest people in the hallway can make it hard to blend in. It appears that most people are trying to avoid eye contact with him, though. He notices that that when he makes eye contact with some people, they avert their eyes and continue to talk with whomever they're strolling with. He'll just have to get used to it. People will be people. More and more people clog the hall as he approaches the large doors leading into the throne room. Some of them he recognizes as nobility from the from the nearby cities. There are a lot of lords and traders of all different shapes and sizes. He even spotted a few heads of some smaller noble houses from the west. They're wearing their crest proudly and chatting amongst themselves. There's even a small band off to the side, talking with each other and tuning their instruments. Everyone is standing up against the wall and pillars, allowing the light to beam through the windows onto the floor. It shines brightly and illuminates the whole room, giving each plant growing on the wall a healthy glow. Lyre desperately tries to spot anyone in the crowd that he knows, so he's not standing around awkwardly. Suddenly, he hears someone a short distance away say his name. Sir Lyle? He turns around to see Kadaj standing alone, his paws behind his back. He has a thoughtful expression on his face. The charismatic attitude he carries is currently absent. Hello, Lord Kadaj. I hope you things are well. As well as they can be. He looks at the ground in discomfort. I also hope that things are good with you. Given everything that's happened. Lyle would start venting about his problems right here and now, but he decided to give the simple answer. Kadaj doesn't know him too well, so he'll try to spare him the details. Nothing's been great, but all I can do is keep moving forward. That's all any of us can do. Unfortunately for myself, I'm unable to go anywhere. Being a hostage and all that. He says that last bit in a joking tone, but Lyle takes it very seriously. Well, we have to keep an open mind when it comes to these things. Surely you'll understand how everyone's suspicions are fairly placed. Of course. It makes plenty sense. He says this with a hint of sarcasm sprinkled in innocently. I am willing to be compliant for the sake of order. Lord Richter and I have talked about this before, and he knows how passionate I am when it comes to that. He swings his paws to the front and clasps them around, dropping down while bouncing on his heels. By the way, how is our mutual friend? I really hope that he's okay. He's as good as anyone would be in a prison cell, but last I saw him, he seemed to be taking it better than most. Richter's strong, so I know he'll get through it. Their conversation has been lowered to a whisper as Lyle begins to speak of Richter. He's definitely the best of us when it comes to that. Something about him has always struck me as different. He's skilled politically, but still holds strength in other areas. What do you mean by that? Well, I don't know much about his past, but I assume since he's not of noble blood, there's something interesting to be said of it. Lyle wonders why Kadaj is bringing this up. It is a bit interesting. Most of what I know is that Richter was a commoner that rose to a higher position of power. Something about it being like a game to him. He never talks about it much. He doesn't seem to be someone fixated on the past. No, he doesn't. At least, not his own. Yeah. Lyle looks down with a bit of sadness in his eyes. You really care for him, don't you? What? The blunt statement takes him off guard. To be fair, he was spacing out a bit. Sorry, I didn't mean to pry. It's just I've been hearing people talk. Yes, people talk. Yeah, I know, but I don't care much for that. Talking is one thing, but seeing is another. Mainly, I notice the way you look at him. I don't mean to offend, but it's blatantly obvious. Lyle shifts uncomfortably, not liking where this chat is going. The blush on his face is clear as day. Where is this going? Please, don't take this the wrong way. I have no intention of showing any form of judgment. Where I'm from, I also have someone that I care for deeply. As much as I hate to admit it. He says that last part under his breath. You'll never hear any judgment from me. I'm only here to help, and I know how much you care for him. Lyle makes a puzzled and embarrassed face. Whatever anybody thinks is up is to them. I appreciate your concern, Lord Kadaj, but we don't need your sympathies. Lyle. Kadaj suddenly takes him by the arm and brings him to a secluded corner of the room, bringing his tone to a hushed whisper. All right, I'll end the part here, everyone, so I will see you around.